set for Ecuador's general election on Sunday. World Health Organization chief reiterates call for COVID-19 vaccine solidarity.
In one sense,
And fighting in northern Mozambique displaces hundreds of thousands. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. On Friday, adults over 50 years old and with physical disabilities exercised their right to vote from home in Ecuador's general elections. Diana Atamain, president of the National Electoral Council, pointed out that 653 individuals were eligible to vote from their homes. Meanwhile, the polls began on Thursday with the early voting of prisoners. Now, Ecuador's National Council for the Equality of Persons with Disabilities announced that all measures were taken to guarantee the success of the assisted home vote that took place on Friday as part of the general elections to be held on February 7th.
Thanks to the cooperation agreements and efforts we have been carrying out with the National Electoral Council, the National Police, taxis, the National Federation for People with Disabilities, we have been able to successfully ensure the presence of people with disabilities. The affirmative action measures, such as the preferential polling stations that have been implemented, around 4,385 polling places at a national level in the different electoral facilities, show the commitment we have to providing voting possibilities, as well as the braille ballot papers. Around 8,000 braille ballots will be deployed in the preferential polling places, plus the measures for the accompanying or assisted vote of persons with disabilities.
In other news, the Venezuelan government has presented new details on the plan that mercenaries intended to execute to prevent the installation of the new National Assembly. During a media conference on Friday, the president of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, presented the confession of Richard Alberto Griet, a former worker of the Assembly who was arrested and charged with the crimes of terrorism, treason, and illicit association after he tried to place explosives in the administrative headquarters of the Assembly and in the Parliament building. In his statement, the detainee confessed that he was contacted in mid-2020 by Colombian intelligence agents who offered payment for several acts of sabotage in Venezuela.
I am going to show the testimony of this terrorist, Richard Alberto Griet Alvarez, security guard at the National Assembly, who was recruited by an agent of the CIA. We are going to show his photograph and his identification. Mr. Richard Griet Alvarez, who was the Deputy Director of the Maracay Municipal Police of the Girardot Municipality of Aragua State, and was captured last Tuesday afternoon, January 26th, when he was about to place explosives at the National Assembly. Colombia. Once again, Iván Duque, in his murderous, aggressive obsession with Venezuela, this Mr. Richard Alberto Griet Alvarez was recruited by this agent of the Central Intelligence Agency. Our intelligence sources in Colombia, because we have them, Iván Duque, told us that this gentleman is an already established agent. He is not an informant. He was not recruited for a specific action. No, he is an agent of the Central Intelligence Agency named Mariano José Ugarte Murillo. He is the one who recruited Richard Alberto Griet Alvarez to commit acts of destabilization, sabotage, the placing of explosives, neutralization of a radar base. This is not the first time that the plan is hatched in Colombia. We have denounced it several times. So Venezuela has developed multiple actions. Many times we have denounced with evidence all these terrorist actions. We denounced the plans developed from the residents of the Spanish embassy, and we stressed it today. How much more evidence do you need to act against a person who betrayed the good faith of the Spanish embassy to plan all these acts?
Moving on, Uruguay's Broad Front Party has commemorated its 50th anniversary. As part of the activities to mark the occasion on Friday, the party's grassroots committees donated food to community soup kitchens. Moreover, this weekend, they will collect signatures for a referendum on the urgent consideration law. The Broad Front was founded in 1971 as a result of agreements between different leftist parties, groups, sectors, and leaders. Staying in Uruguay, the National Trade Union Center recently celebrated the anniversary of the birth of Cuban national hero Jose Marti and marked the achievement of 100,000 eye operations as part of the Operation Miracle Eye Surgery program. Our correspondent, Mateo Gray, has the details.
The event represented well-deserved recognition of Cuba by Uruguayan workers. The National Trade Union Center and the Bank Workers Union celebrated the anniversary of the birth of Cuban national hero Jose Marti, as well as 100,000 surgeries performed in Uruguay within the framework of Operation Miracle, an initiative created by Commander Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez, offering free eye surgeries for people with limited resources.
We do not want to miss the opportunity to mark Marti's birthday on January 28th, and at the same time connect it with what it meant for the history of Cuba and Cuban independence, and link it to the current struggles and current gratitude.
In 2005, Uruguay formally joined Operation Miracle, and in 2007, the Jose Marti Eye Hospital was inaugurated. Several brigades of Cuban doctors have treated thousands of Uruguayans at the facility. In November 2020, the number of free operations performed reached 100,000.
We are infinitely grateful for the presence of the Cuban doctors here at the Jose Marti Hospital, generating a situation where it is demonstrated that they can organize to ensure that health is not a commodity, is not a source of profit for a few, but that they are above concepts such as profitability and other issues.
The Cuban workers also expressed their gratitude for the tributes. The coordinator of the Operation Miracle Brigade in Uruguay, Jose Hernandez, highlighted the benefit of working with Uruguayans.
In these 30 years, we have performed 100,000 surgeries. We have performed them as part of our duty as health professionals, and we have felt really proud, happy to be working during this stage of our life, to be exchanging with health professionals in Uruguay.
The event, organized by Uruguayan workers, not only served to commemorate the anniversary of the birth of Jose Marti and to celebrate the 100,000 surgeries offered under Operation Miracle, it was also announced that Uruguayan workers are joining the global campaign calling for Cuba's Henry Reeve International Medical Contingent to be awarded the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize.
Mateo Grille, teleSUR, Montevideo, Uruguay.
We'll take a short break now. Don't go away.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. The government of the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais has reached an agreement with private mining company Vale regarding compensation for the social and environmental damage caused by the dam collapse and toxic spill in the municipality of Brumadinho in January 2019. The mining giant committed to paying $7 billion in compensation. The amount represents $4 billion less than what was initially demanded by the government from the company, which will not be responsible for removing the toxic waste from the area. The negotiations left out the families affected by the incident, who stressed the deal does not represent the reparations they are clamoring for. More than 200 people died during the incident. Continuing in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro has suspended its world-famous carnival due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The mayor, Eduardo Paes, said the state does not have the time nor the right conditions to hold the event this year. Previously, Carnival Samba schools expressed their support for the postponement of the most famous street festival in the world due to the unsafe conditions. State authorities warned that if the decree banning carnival activities is not complied with, they will confiscate equipment and musical instruments. Although Brazil has started its vaccination campaign, the country faces one of the highest rates of infection and deaths due to the coronavirus in the world. Over to Cuba, health authorities have said that the country's pharmaceutical industry has the technological capacity to produce millions of monthly doses of its upcoming COVID-19 vaccines. The country is currently developing 4 vaccine candidates, 2 of which will move on to phase 3 clinical trials in March: Soberana 2 from the Finlay Vaccine Institute and Abdallah from the Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology. Eduardo Ojito, director of the Center for Molecular Immunology, stated that they can produce 100,000 daily doses, which translates to 12,000 per hour in each laboratory. Ojito added that once the regulatory authority approves phase 3, production and distribution will begin.
Of these 4 candidates that are now in human trials, of the 4 candidates there are 3 fundamental elements based on which, after the results in the preclinical studies in animals, we have decided to go undertake in parallel and use in human in clinical trials. But before referring to these 3 elements, I would like to explain what these 4 candidates have in common. These 4 candidates use the same type of antigen.
Cuba has implemented a nightly curfew in Havana between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. in an attempt to tackle a resurgence of COVID-19 cases. There will be a total restriction of movement for people and vehicles during curfew hours, with special permission required to enter and leave the city for other provinces. Authorities also reminded that fines of up to $80 remain in place for gatherings, not wearing face masks, and for parents who allow their children to stay out in public.
Beginning today, new and more restrictive measures are in place because there are new infections, and this must be avoided for ourselves, for the children, for the Cuban Republic, and for whole humanity.
Now they have to take these measures to avoid infection because Boca de Jaruco is full of COVID-19 cases. Santa Cruz equally. The measures taken are very good, but the government should also take into account the problems we have.
Peruvian President Francisco Sagasti has said that 300,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine produced by China's Sinopharm pharmaceutical company will arrive in the Latin American country on Sunday. According to the president, this first shipment was delayed due to the suspension of flights to China by the European airline KLM, the operator contracted by his government to transport the doses. Citizens have questioned the delay in the acquisition of the vaccines as the country faces a strong second wave of the epidemic. Speaking of, in the United States, a mass vaccination site has been opened at the Yankee Stadium in the Bronx in an effort to reach minorities in the impoverished neighborhood that's hardest hit by the pandemic in New York City.
I think it's important to have a center here. They should have at least 3 other ones like this in the Bronx. I arrived here around 9 a.m. and I am just getting out.
I feel good, thankfully, and I'm grateful to God, because we have to believe in something, and this is science, and I know this is going to make a difference. 2 or 3 people are told me they wouldn't get vaccinated, but I try to tell them we have to trust in something, and some changes their mind. Many didn't change their mind, but for me, I believe that this is a matter of choosing between life and death.
The head of the World Health Organization has called on vaccine manufacturers to share technologies in order to help boost production, warning that unless there is more access to jabs, the progress made against the pandemic will be lost.
Globally, the number of vaccinations has now overtaken the number of reported infections. In one sense, that's good news and a remarkable achievement in such a short time frame. But more than 3/4 of those vaccinations are in just 10 countries that account for almost 60% of global GDP. We need countries to share doses once they have finished vaccinating health workers and older people. But we also need a massive scale-up in production. Unless we suppress the virus everywhere, we could end up back at square one.
We have more stories coming up. Until then, stay with us.
Who's moving the chess man? What interests and motivate the actors behind each event? What's at stake? Critical Moves investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. The European Union's High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell, met with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Friday. This was the first visit to Russia by an EU High Representative since 2017. Among the issues discussed by the two diplomats were the importance of continued implementation of the Iran nuclear deal, climate change, and the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. Referring to COVID-19 and the need for vaccines, the top EU diplomat hailed the success of Russia's Sputnik V vaccine and said he hoped it could be certified for use in the bloc. And speaking after the meeting in Moscow, Borrell said the EU continues to reject the United States blockade against Cuba and expressed hope that U.S. President Joe Biden will soon overturn his predecessor's decision to designate Cuba a state sponsor of terrorism.
We regretted very much the designation by Trump to include Cuba as a country supporting terrorism. They take this decision on the last hours in office. And we consider, and I want to use this opportunity to insist that we strongly regret this kind of decisions, and we expect that the new administration will bring things back to the situation previous to this decision taken on the last minute by the Trump administration, which is going to create a lot of difficulties to the Cuban people and to the trade and economic relationship between the European Union and Cuba.
China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin has said that the Asian nation welcomes the 5-year extension of the nuclear arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia.
Welcomes the 5-year extension of the New START by the United States and Russia. It will help maintain global strategic stability, promote global peace and security, and meet the shared expectations of the international community. At the same time, the United States and Russia hold the largest nuclear arsenals, with their combined nuclear weaponry accounting for over 90% of the world's total. The two should follow international consensus, uphold their special and primary responsibilities to nuclear disarmament, and further substantively slash their nuclear stockpile in a verifiable, irreversible, and legally binding way to create conditions for ultimately comprehensive and complete nuclear disarmament.
Around 1,000 people have taken to the streets of Myanmar's commercial capital in a show of resistance against the country's military coup earlier this week. The crowd of workers, students, unionists and activists marched through Yangon in support of ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi before being blocked by hundreds of riot police. The march came one day after authorities broadened a ban on social media, shutting access to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and other related apps. The military seized power shortly before a new session of parliament was to convene on Monday and detained Suu Kyi and other top politicians. The military accused Suu Kyi and her party of failing to act on its complaints that the election was fraudulent, though the Election Commission said it had found no such evidence to support the claims. Palestinian authorities have welcomed the decision by the International Criminal Court to recognize the country as a state party to the court. Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh said the move opens the possibility of investigating Israel for alleged war crimes in the occupied territories. According to the Palestinian leader, the decision is a message to the perpetrators of crimes that their actions will not go unpunished. He noted that it is also a triumph for the court itself, which thwarted Israel's attempts to politicize its deliberations. The pretrial chamber, one of the International Criminal Courts, decided by majority that the territorial jurisdiction in the situation in Palestine, a state party to the ICC Rome Statute, extends to the territories occupied by Israel since 1967, namely Gaza and the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the ruling, calling the court a political body. Shifting gears now, delegates from Libya's warring factions have selected new leaders to guide the North African country through two national elections in December. The move is seen as a major step towards unifying a nation with two separate governments in the East and West. 74 delegates chose a list of candidates in a United Nations-hosted process, aimed to give balance to regional powers and various political and economic interests. Mohamed Younes Menfi, a Libyan diplomat with a support base in the country's east, was chosen to head the three-person presidential council. Meanwhile, Abdul Hamid Mohamed Debia, a powerful businessman backed by Western tribes, was chosen as interim prime minister.
The importance of the decision that you have taken. Winning ticket that won 39 votes for the presidency of the Presidency Council, Mr. Mohamed Younes El Menfi. On behalf of the United Nations, I am pleased to witness this historic moment.
Tens of thousands of people have set up makeshift camps in the Cabo Delgado area of Mozambique after fleeing from extremist violence in the northern region of the country. Since the violence began in 2017, more than 2,500 people have been killed and over 500,000 displaced. The displacement camps are now dealing with another problem: an outbreak of cholera due to the unsanitary conditions. Health officials say there are also problems with malnutrition and malaria. Cabo Delgado has the highest rate of chronic malnutrition in the country, with over half of its children malnourished.
We don't know how we are going to get out of this situation. We have not had any help. We are not living well. As you can see, sometimes we eat, sometimes we don't. We are really suffering.
When they come, they cover their heads. You can only see their eyes. I didn't recognize them. First of all, it was Salima. She was picking mangoes when they kidnapped her. The second was Aiwa. She went to get water and they took her away.
And on that note, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Now, for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. And join us on social media for TeleSUR English. I am Doris Polo. Thanks for watching.